There's no easy answer to why people drink. Some people drink because they think it's fun and they're just out to party. And then they get doing it so long that it becomes a habit, and then it becomes an addiction. For others, it's a way of dealing with trauma. And we have a lot of trauma. A lot of it began in residential schools, where we were abused and terrorized and brought that back to our communities. But a lot of the trauma just comes from alcohol, from the violence in our communities. Trauma didn't end with residential school. Somebody was traumatized last night. Somebody's going to be traumatized tonight. Some woman's going to get the shit kicked out of her. And she's going to be traumatized. And so are the 5 kids who watched. And it's just ongoing. Tell you a little bit about trauma. Boy in northern Saskatchewan, young man actually. He's in a relationship. He's too young to be in a relationship. He doesn't know how that works. Add alcohol. Him and his girlfriend walk out of the community late at night with a bottle, walk down the highway. They're standing on a bridge having a lover's quarrel. She proves to him that she's serious, jumps in front of a semi, commits suicide in front of him. Takes 3 hours for the police and the ambulance to arrive, and he stays with the body. He's traumatized. He's having feelings, he's having thoughts, things he can't describe, things he doesn't understand. He goes to somebody older, somebody wiser, asking for advice. How do I deal with these feelings and thoughts? He asks his aunt. His aunt says, go and get drunk and forget about it. So he does. Gets drunk. Stays drunk. One morning, beautiful July morning, he's sleeping in his car. Police are knocking on the window. Sometime during the night, he doesn't even remember. Driving around drunk. He ran over his cousin. Killed his cousin. Found his cousin's DNA underneath his car. More trauma. More grief. More reason to drink. We got this wheel of trauma and grief and drinking and trauma and grief and drinking. And it's rolling over top of us. And it's destroying us. And the only spoke in that wheel that I can see to knock out is that alcohol spoke.
How do you think we could deal with that trauma?
The way we're dealing with it now is by using alcohol. Alcohol alleviates all of the symptoms of trauma. If you're traumatized, you have high anxiety, depression, overwhelming sense of sorrow. Food doesn't even taste good. There's no reason to move, no reason to get up. If you're a businessman here in Regina and you got a high-stress job, you might have an anxiety level of 3 or 4. You go out on Friday and you have a couple drinks and it goes down to 0. If you got PTSD, you have anxiety, depression, 7, 8, 9, and it's there all the time. You wake up in the middle of the night and it's still there. You go out on Friday and you have a few drinks, it goes down to 2 or 3. That's what you think normal people feel like. You want to be there all the time. Problem with alcohol, it works, but you quickly develop a tolerance to it and it requires more and more. And then we've got all of the other problems with alcohol, all of the violence. Destroyed families, destroyed homes, destroyed livers, destroyed brains, cancer, heart disease. unwanted pregnancies. What we're finding works with addictions is land-based healing. Camp Hope, when it was set up in Montreal Lake a couple of years ago, they took people back out onto the land, and at the same time they had them working with Western-trained trauma counselors. And my friend who was running that program told me that when it came back in the evening and brought Indigenous people back off the land, sometimes they were crying. And they'd say, "I'm an Indian, but I never set a rabbit snare before." Or, "I'm an Indian, but I never set a fishnet before." So it's taking our people back out onto the land, connecting them with who they are. We're Indigenous people, we're Indians. We're from this land. That land is who we are. So we get our identity back, an identity that's been erased for many of us. And when you have an identity, you know who you are. And when you know who you are, that's when you can stand up. That's when you can start taking steps. Camp Hope had a 78% success rate. Alcoholics Anonymous has an 8% success rate. Treatment centers have success rates between 2 and 5%. 2% for the treatment centers we send our people to. 5% if you spend thousands of dollars a week and go to Vancouver. And we've all known this. If you're in northern Saskatchewan and you use the words land and healing in the same sentence, you don't have to explain it. People understand. We've been going to the trap line for a long, long time to heal. We might not have put it in words, but we understand. That's where you go to get your life back. There's very few going to the trap line anymore.